வளர்ந்திருக்குன்னா அதற்கு முதல் பங்கேற்பு லேனா கண்ணப்பன். காலையில் பேசும் பொழுது அவர்கிட்ட இந்த டிஜிட்டல் எக்ஸ்பேன்ஷன் போர்ட்ஃபோலியோவை கொண்டு வந்தமே, எப்படி அதை பற்றி சொல்லாமல் விட்டுட்டீங்களே அப்படின்னு சொல்லி கேட்டேன். இந்த செஷனில் கவர் பண்ணுறேன்னு சொல்லியிருக்காரு. அதில் நிறையா பேர் நண்பர்கள் எல்லாம் கேட்டாங்க. அதனால இப்படி ஒரு ஷார்ட் ஸ்பேன் ஆஃப் டைமில் சிலிகான் வேலி இஸ் ஆல்வேஸ் அ பிக், அண்ட் ரங்கசாமி சார் வந்து இஸ் இந்தியாஸ் ஃபாரா, அவர் ஃபவுண்டர், என்ன பெரிய ஆள் அவர். எல்லாத்தையும் கமலா ஹாரிஸ் முதற்கொண்டு எவ்வளவோ பேர்த்துக்கு கூட இருந்து பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு. Arunmozhi, recently we hearing your name very often in across the globe and looking forward to speech. ஒரு பேனல்னா ஆணும் பெண்ணும் இணைந்து, அந்த காலத்துல சொல்லுவாங்க, ஆடி பாடி வேலை செஞ்சா அலுப்பு இருக்காது, அதில் ஆணும் பெண்ணும் சேராவிட்டால் அழகு இருக்காது அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு, அந்த மாதிரி எல்லாத்தையும் சேர்த்தி ஒருங்கிணைச்சு கொண்டிருக்காரு லேனா கண்ணப்பன். வாங்க லேனா, 1 மணி நேரம் எல்லாரும் நீங்க ஒவ்வொருத்தரும் 2 மணி நேரம் பேசுறதுக்கு தகுதியுள்ள ஆட்கள். அதை வந்து என்ன நேரத்துல சிலிகான் வேலி ஸ்டைல நீங்க முடிக்கிறீங்கிற சேலஞ்சோட உங்களுக்கு முதல்ல வந்து நீங்க ஒரு 2-3 நிமிடம் எடுத்து எனக்கு அந்த டிஜிட்டல் ஃபாரத்தை எடுத்துட்டு நீங்க எல்லாத்தையும் அறிமுகப்படுத்தி ரங்கசுவாமி சார் கிட்ட ஒப்படைச்சிங்கன்னா ரொம்ப நல்லா இருக்கும். ஏதாவது இடைசறுகள்ல உங்க நேரத்தை போட்டு குறைக்கிறேன்னா ஐ அப்பாலஜைஸ், அண்ட் you guys are going to always rock and keep the rocking forward. Thank you.
வணக்கம், நன்றி கால்வல். தமிழ நன்றி சொல்லடா, தலை நிமிர்ந்து நெல்லடா அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு இதுல தான் நம்ம கால் எடுத்து வச்சோம். தமிழ் தொழில் முனைவோர்களுக்காக இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு மாநாடை சிலிகான் வேலியில 2015 ஆரம்பிச்சு, இன்னைக்கு காலையில தான் கேட்டேன், அத்தனை இது சம்பந்தமான தலைவர்கள் அத்தனை பேரும் அதுக்கு அடுத்த ஊரோடம் பண்ணவங்கலாம் அவ்வளவு சிறப்பா பேசினாங்க. ரொம்ப சிறப்பா இருந்தது. ராமநாகப்பட்டினத்துல இருந்து அத்தனை பேரும். இப்போ ஒரு 1 மினிட் என்ன பண்றேன்னா, இந்த அமெரிக்கன் தமிழ் ஆண்டர்பிரினர்ஸ் அசோசியேஷன் உருவாறதுக்கு மிகப்பெரிய அளவுல வாலண்டியர்ஸோட சப்போர்ட் தான். நாங்க சிலிகான் வேலியோட சப்போர்ட்டுக்கு காரணமே, there are so many core volunteers. Actually many of them are part of TAI. Actually பிரகாஷ் நாராயணனா இருக்கட்டும், முதல்ல வந்து நரசிம்மன், பத்து கோவிந்தராஜ், இது மாதிரி நிறைய பேர் அதுல இன்வால்வ் இருந்தாங்க. பாஸ்கர் அண்ட் ஐ கேன் தங்கமணி, விபி ஆஃப் மொபைல் அட் பேங்க் ஆஃப் தி வெஸ்ட், மாதிரி so many people, so many CXO பொசிஷன்ஸ்ல இருந்தவங்களும் விபி லெவல்ல இருந்தவங்களும். ஸோ அது ஏடிஏவை நாங்கள் ஆரம்பிச்சதுல இருந்து ஆல்மோஸ்ட் 2016 எண்டில் தான் எவ்ரி அதர் மந்த் வி ஹவ் பீன் கண்டக்டிங் மீட்டப்ஸ் இன் சிலிகான் வேலி. And almost every Sunday morning, 8 to 9, I have a call with the team since 2016 December. This is continuing, still continuing. I'm very proud of the team. And then adukapra they expand ஆகி இந்த மாதிரி மல்டிபிள் ரீஜன்ஸ்ல போச்சு. நிறைய சாப்டர்ஸ் உருவாயிருக்கு US ஃபுல்லா ATL. So I'm very happy to share the important initiative for a minute. I'm actually switching to a slide right now. So last year, September, when the CM of Tamil Nadu, Thiru Edapadi Palanisamiyam, but almost 15 IAS officers inga US ku visit பண்ணிருந்தாங்க. முதல்ல ஃபெட்னா அண்ட் ATA ஈஸ்ட் கோஸ்ட் டீம் வந்து அவங்களை ஹோஸ்ட் பண்ணாங்க ஈஸ்ட் கோஸ்ட்ல. அதுக்கப்புறம் வெஸ்ட் கோஸ்ட் வந்தப்ப September 4th we launched what's called ATA Digital Accelerator. So digital accelerator is basically a virtual accelerator which partners with academic institutions, incubators, accelerators, mentors, and all accomplished entrepreneurs, investors, and most importantly the aspiring entrepreneurs, right? Both the women and youth are also going to benefit, and especially mainly they're going to benefit from this effort. அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கிற ஒரு கான்செப்டை வந்து லாஸ்ட் செப்டம்பர்ல வந்து லான்ச் பண்ணாங்க. அதில் ஐ திங்க் வாட் ஐ வாண்ட் டு சே மெயினா, இதில் வர்ற பீப்புள் ஹூ ஆர் ஸ்டார்டிங் நியூ கம்பெனிஸ், அதுவும் லாஸ்ட் செஷன் கேட்டோம், அவ்வளவு சிறப்பாக இருந்தது. அருண்குமார் பண்ண செஷன் டியூரிங் இந்த COVID-19 டைம்ல கணேஷ் ராதாகிருஷ்ணனா இருக்கட்டும், இல்லை திரு ஸ்ரீனிவாசனா இருக்கட்டும், இல்லை சுதாவா இருக்கட்டும், அவங்க ஆரம்பிக்கிற இந்த கம்பெனிஸ், இந்த மாதிரி ஸ்டார்ட் அப் வெஞ்சர்ஸ் வந்து எனேபிள் பண்ணி அதுக்கு மென்டரிங் கொடுத்து இன்வெஸ்ட்மெண்ட் கொண்டு வர்றது தான் இதோட வேலையை. அண்ட் கனெக்ட் வித் பீப்புள் பேக் இன் தமிழ்நாடு அண்ட் இந்தியா. அது வந்து ஒரு பெரிய ஒரு பார்ட் ஆஃப் த விஷன் சொல்லணும். ஆனால் பியாண்ட் ஆல் திஸ் வி வில் டேக் இட் ரியலி குளோபல். ஸோ இது வரைக்கும் பார்த்த வரைக்கும் I think we will start with curating this startup, and then number 2 we will evaluate the startups. Number 3 we will help mentoring the startup entrepreneurs, and fourth வந்து we will help them raise money. இந்த கான்செப்டை கேட்டுட்டு தமிழ்நாடு கவர்மெண்ட் was quite impressed, and they announced about 50 crores in grants to qualified startups coming out of ATA. And they're planning to increase that amount in the coming months and coming years. Adoda first actual execution of that MOU, because of COVID-19 time nalla konja slow down aachu, but it's going to be really be signed and executed in the coming month or two. Idhula vandu MOU sign pannadhu vandu last year we brought about 35 companies across the US who signed MOUs with the Tamil Nadu government. Was worth I think 3,500 crores or something, and about 14 of them were from Silicon Valley. So adoda continuation vandu in July la vandu we are going to have another first virtual MOU signing by the Tamil Nadu government. We are hoping to have Chief Minister in that event in July. With that announcement, and I would encourage every one of you to, if you have a new idea, feel free to reach out to ATA team members across the US, and we'll be happy to help you. Adoda, I think I want to move on to today's topic and presentation. So the next is the panel on investment, climate, and opportunities in a post-COVID-19 world. So here we have, I'm really honored to have a light panelists to join us. The abstract for the panel enna, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in disruption to the global economy and markets in 2020. As has been observed in the past global crisis, this presents investment opportunities to support the recovery towards a resilient future. This panel will discuss the opportunities and explore a few or most of these topics on cross-border economy, healthcare technologies, legal implications, sustainable environmental, social, and governance considerations. இதை விட ஒரு பெஸ்ட் பேனலிஸ்ட் அண்ட் பேனல் நம்மளால ஆர்கனைஸ் பண்றது வந்து ரியலி டிஃபிகல்ட் ஃபார் திஸ் டாபிக் அண்ட் திஸ் டைப் ஆஃப் சிச்சுவேஷன். Post-COVID-19 era is going to be completely different, and it's going to be a new normal everyone is talking about. And here we have, we call MR as a Talaiva from Silicon Valley. He is one of the very first angel investors who started an angel investment firm as early as 1995. And he co-founded Sandhill Group. And then also he created the whole Indiaspora organization, which actually connects most of the Indian community and accomplished entrepreneurs to people who are involved in charity and community givings. They're all part of this Indiaspora. And another big thing about MR is able to bring future senators and congressmen, people of Indian community to come into public office. So we are really glad to have him as a moderator today. He's listed on the Forbes as a Meadows list of investors, and he still is the publisher of Sandhill.com, which is a leading website for entrepreneurs, VCs, and CIOs. And I think I'll give it to MR once I go through the introductions of other panelists. Next we have Priya Rajan, who is also another stalwart from Silicon Valley. She's currently the managing director of Silicon Valley Bank. She's the market lead for India, Middle East, and SEA for globally. She's a great influencer, and she has been she's a great moderator as well. She has been conducting events every other week since COVID-19 started. Bringing in so many venture capitalists and others on the panel across the globe, including India. And she's on the board of Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Women Who Code. And she's a great supporter of, women-oriented ventures and a lot of investments and entrepreneurs she's supporting. And finally, she's a charter member of TAI and she's a venture partner at X1. Welcome, Priya. Next panelist is another great individual. She's also a very popular woman from Silicon Valley, as far as I know. Nandini Ramani. She's currently the Chief Operating Officer of Outcome Health, and this is a healthcare startup company. Even I was amazed. I think it was like almost valued close to $1 billion a couple of years ago, based out of Chicago. After some challenges, she really turned it around, took over a lot of management responsibilities. She's currently COO of that organization. She was the ex-VP of engineering at Twitter, and prior to that, she was at Oracle. During Twitter days, we have invited her as a keynote speaker at one of the ATA events in the past. And she's a TEDx speaker. Also, she's a great supporter of youth and women in her career. Thanks for joining, Nandini. And next one is Anil Advani, who I have worked with him and working with him now. He's a founder of and managing director of Invent Tesla. It's a law firm based in Silicon Valley. It's more than 10 years old. Anil has been involved in supporting since day one over 3,000 plus startups, angels, and founders, and he's been involved in 500 plus financing and M&A transactions valued over $3 billion. And he's a crucial legal advisor, I should say, to US-India Strategic Partnership. That's the organization who was involved partnering with us in FETNA when Tamil Nadu government folks were visiting last year. And he's a unbelievably talented attorney as well as influential person. Welcome, Anil. Thanks for joining our panel today. And last but not the least, Arunmozhi Balasubramaniam. Maybe I want to start saying he comes from my same college that I went to, Annamalai University, Chidambaram. He's currently the Senior VP Global Sales and BD Strategy for Reliance Jio. As many of you would have heard, the recent investment from Facebook into Reliance. So it's really a best time to have someone like Arunmozhi join our panel. And he's a great, passionate individual when it comes to business, ventures. And he's also he was leading an innovation arm at Tech Mahindra. And he was there more than a decade as ex-SVP covering sales, strategy, and solutions at Tech Mahindra. And prior to that, he was the ex-country manager of France for L&T Infotech. Welcome, Arun. And so I think with that, I will pass it on to MR to go ahead with the session. Thank you, MR.
ரொம்ப நன்றி லேனா. நான் தமிழ்லயே பேசிடுவேன் ஃபுல்லா. ஆனா இங்க ஒரு பேனலிஸ்ட் இருக்காரு, அவருக்கு தமிழ் புரியாது. யாருன்னு தெரியும். நான் ஒன்னும் சொல்ல மாட்டேன். So வணக்கம் everyone. This is going to be a great panel in a tough time. So we'll try to cover as many topics as possible. And what I want to do is to set the stage by giving you a backdrop of what is going on in the world today during COVID, Black Lives Matter, corporate sustainability and such, all kinds of things that are going on that are changing the dynamics of the global situation today. So just to give you a quick backdrop, first thing, all of you must have seen Satya Nadella's quote. We were able to digitize in 2 months what would have taken 2 years. If the world's highest market cap company can do that, this is a challenge to the entire industry to change and go digital as soon as possible, right? You cannot meet a customer. You cannot talk to a customer face to face. Everything is digital today. And it's going that way more and more and more throughout the world. So that is one of the biggest opportunities we have during COVID and post-COVID is how can we get the entire world to go digital, whether it's e-commerce, supply chain interactions using blockchain, on and on and on and on. There's a huge host of opportunities that we have based on today's situation, right? And one big chunk of that I want to explore a little bit further is working from home. As you can see from the backdrops of everyone here, we're sitting at home, except for Anil, who's sitting in the forest. All the rest of us are within our homes actually doing work today. And this is a whole new opportunity unto itself. It's not just using Zoom or StreamYard that we're using in this particular session, but everything we do, productivity of the people working from home, the different tools and solutions we need working from home. This is a huge, huge opportunity which we'll explore as well. But leaving home, there's another big area, healthcare. During these times, how do you handle healthcare? What is telemedicine? What does HIPAA compliance means? All these kinds of things. And we have an expert in our group who can really focus on the healthcare opportunities as well. And then in many, many other places we don't even think of. All of us are cricket fans or football fans, but there are no sports going on. And when sports come back, there's not going to be an audience for these sports. So we will be watching these from home in the silence of our house. How did these industries actually change? That's another question. So you can look, and so many opportunities. I wrote down a bunch of these. So it's not, how about work and leisure activities? Nobody's going to gyms. Nobody's doing anything in travel and hospitality. How do we enjoy these elements that we're used to enjoying sitting at home? Are there opportunities for AR, VR, types of products and such? And then also we have an expert, Arunmozhi, in our audience. Telco. The telco companies are more in need than ever. There's huge amounts of bandwidth. We all start watching Netflix and Disney and all these products along with doing work. How is the home and the office going to manage with these new workloads? And what are new opportunities for entrepreneurs in the space of the telecom world, right? And then what do companies do? How do they get going in these days? So that is the backdrop. So in these tough times, in these recessionary times, great companies can be created. So I think we'll see a whole new host of new entrepreneurs, of existing companies, pivoting to these new opportunities. So I'm more bullish than ever in terms of what can be done using the COVID times, using the Black Lives Matter movement and getting racial justice. How do we become more corporate and sustainable citizens? This is a fantastic time to be an entrepreneur. And to discuss it, we have 4 great panelists. So I'm going to start by asking each one of them just one question to get it going, and then we'll have a panel discussion. So the first question is for Priya. Priya, in your role at Silicon Valley Bank, you are talking to entrepreneurs and investors across the world. Can you give us a global view of what is going on during this pandemic?
Thank you, Amar, and thank you, Lena, for this opportunity to bring us all together. This is, you're absolutely right, Amar. We have been talking to a ton of investors kind of around the globe, not just from India, US, cross-border. It's not a surprise. We're in a recession similar or towards a recession similar to the global financial crisis or the .com. With that said, to your point, we just need to take a step back, and we went through those together and we came up fine, right? I think it's the consensus across both the investors and founders and corporates that it is going to be a tough time. That's a given. But how are we going to navigate through the tough time is going to be slightly different than what we have done before. So I think those are conversations that we're going to evolve. But with that said, I think it's just a matter of now kind of stepping back. We're in this together. Let's handle it. That's kind of what I would say from a macro level. Okay, and we'll get into some of the investment valuations and funding and so forth as we discuss further. Next up is our Rajnikant fan. You'll be surprised. It's not the 3 of us on this panel. It's the 4th guy. And so Anil Advani is a huge Rajnikant fan. And welcome, Anil. And tell us what is going on in the world of startups. You work with 3,000 different startups. You're incorporating companies in the US and India. What is going on? Are you seeing more startups getting created? Are you seeing
companies fold up. What's the latest?
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Thank you, Lena, and I'm great to be here again. Yes, I mean, I'm actually seeing more companies. So March was a little difficult, right? No one knew what was happening. It seemed like the whole earth was going to fall. So the middle March to, I guess, early April, everyone really took a back seat and said, let's figure this out. And we all did a lot of webinars, talked to entrepreneurs, talked to each other, trying to figure this out. I don't think anyone's figured it out yet, right? So I think the title of this panel itself is somewhat misleading when we say it's post-COVID world. We are not in the post-COVID world. So that's the first thing we have to be careful about, right? Not assuming we are in the post-COVID world. We are actually still going through this world. As far as the startup activity, the specific question, we're actually as busy as we were in January, February. In fact, the level of activity in terms of startups, investments is continuing to grow. And I expect will continue to grow because there'll be, as Lena and you said earlier, there will be more focus on technology. Going digital is all technology. As you go digital, the tools and services needed to support that, digital workplace, living, sports, everything else will be all driven by technology. So I think we're all sort of in this unique bubble where there's obviously a lot happening around the world. And if we watch CNN, we'll be paranoid and we'll feel really terrible. If we shut CNN and we talk to each other, our clients, the bubble that we live in, this technology work bubble, it seems to be a pretty good place to be. And I don't want to jinx it, and I hate saying it, given that being sensitive to what's happening around us. But I expect that this bubble will just continue, and whoever can be part of it and help grow will.
Thanks, Anil. I think maybe Lena, we should have also brought Dr. Fauci to this panel to tell us when we may even get out of this. But we have a healthcare expert in our midst as well. So I want to pose a question to Nandini. If people want to go see a doctor or go get a non-elective surgery today and all these things, how do you even think of all these things during the COVID era? And what does healthcare look like with telemedicine, with complying with regulations? Nandini, neenga enna nenikkireenga idu patti?
I don't know if I can keep up with my Tamil, but I can definitely answer the question. So digitized healthcare has seen uptick in investments in the last few years, even before the pandemic hit. In fact, Q1 of 2020, just in the US alone, it's like 3.1 billion in the first quarter of the year. And this has certainly served as a catalyst in the industry to provide better care, not just personalized, customized care, but also how do you think about creating communities with empathy and things like that? And this obviously changes depending on the specialty, how endemic, chronic ailments versus PCP visits, etc. So it is a huge opportunity, I think, for telehealth startups. And right now, under the emergency provision, like you mentioned, HIPAA has been relaxed. Never thought we'd see a day since 1996 that we'd see relaxation of HIPAA issues, which then opens up a can of worms on privacy and like regulatory concerns, etc. So lots to unpack there. But I think given healthcare has always trailed in adoption of digital technologies, this is in fact a good thing. It's a catalyst. I know it's an awful thing to say, but I'm saying something positive can come out of us being here. And you can see an amazing amount of activity in the telehealth space just in the last 2-3 months. And I'm happy to unpack. I don't want to monologue with the first question, but happy to unpack more as we go.
Thanks, Nandini. And then we also originally, I know Lena had invited Mukesh Ambani, but he's asleep in India. So instead, he sent us his trusted lieutenant, Arunmozhi. And we have some specific questions for him as well, right? So Arun, I think the telco world has gone crazy because we are all using StreamYard, we are using Zoom, Microsoft Meet, Teams, and WebEx, Cisco, and so on and so forth. And our kids are at home, they're doing online classes. Our spouses are at home doing things. How is the telco industry? What are you doing? And what are the opportunities for startups?
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Lena and Kanappan, for inviting me to this panel. Absolutely. I think all of you have realized, and you can only imagine, but in terms of the actual data points, that it is published data that the network traffic has gone up by 20 to 30 times across the world. In the telco world is used to this, by the way. It's on an annual rate of growth for data in the last few years has been around 40% a year. But all of that happening in a matter of few days or few weeks is what is new for us. So that is what we were struggling with. Some were better positioned, some were not that well positioned. For example, in Spain, the major Spanish operators, because they saw an upshot of about 50% of data, and they sent out a message to publicly that they were going to have a huge meltdown of their network if the traffic doesn't come down. And they even started a movement called Go Standard, because people are watching all HD, so instead go for a standard definition. And so that's what is happening. That's what we have been dealing with. And second thing is your second question about the innovation. The way we communicated before COVID and after COVID has changed. Now, things that I don't know about you, at least I am talking to my dad on a video call on a daily basis. And that was never, it used to be a once in a week affair. And we are doing a lot more on video now. So the way we communicate, the more intimacy is extremely important. And so there is a lot of innovation happening around that. There is only few tools now. You are hearing a lot more about like StreamYard, and you have Blue Jeans and Zoom. It never was it was a enterprise only name. Today Zoom is a household name. And of course, you heard of GeoMeet yesterday, announced by Geo. So there is quite a lot happening. So intimate communication. So I don't want to monopolize, but we can talk more when we in terms of what more innovation happening around.
Thank you. I was talking to Eric Yuan. He was at our conference in March, the founder of Zoom, and he said new features would include virtual hugs and virtual handshakes. I don't know if that's a good substitute for a physical meeting, but lots of opportunities within the telco space as well. Now let's move on and this is a question for the panel in general. And by the way, those of you watching on Facebook Live or YouTube, please do ask questions. They will be collected and we'll be able to put them onto the panelists as they come in. So please do use the chat feature on YouTube and on Facebook to send questions to the panelists. But the first question I have for the panel in general is, if you're a startup today, how would you go about doing your business? Because you cannot meet people. You cannot raise funding in the traditional way. You cannot conduct business in the way you thought you would conduct. So what are some tips, techniques, ideas for startups to actually conduct business in the way that they are in the COVID world? Anybody want to take that?
I can start off on one particular thing that came up in all of our webinars. We've done about 20 webinars with pretty much all of the top tier VCs from India and folks from here who invest in India as well. Two things kind of comes up, right? Preserve cash, that's given because of two different things. One, your fundraising is going to be difficult, or it's going to be delayed, or just postponed forever. So hopefully not the third, but it is going to happen. So how do you preserve cash? In two different ways that you could do, right? So critical part, step one, is going to do scenario analysis. Sit with your investors, whatever stage you're in, continue to do scenario analysis across all stages, whether be it you need to do 3, 6, 9, 12 month kind of a scenario analysis to understand, hey, if my revenue drops from 50% to like 0, what does that mean? 50% to 10%, what does that mean? Because then you kind of figure out your top line. How do you prioritize that? Then on the flip side, you also need to understand how do you reduce your burn. So those are some tough conversations that you may need to have with some of your employees or some of your customers, some of your clients, whoever it is. So I think preserving cash and doing scenario analysis would be, I would say, number one thing that a founder, if you've not done already, time to do it now.
Great.
I can go next in terms of that question. I think for any startup, in fact, for any business, but I'll sort of focus on startups, which is the only thing I know about in the broad business world. There are three areas, right? Three sort of categories of people or categories that you have to think about. First is your team, right? And then second is your customers. Third is your investors, right? So I would say, you know, go back into the trenches and say, how do I address? And there's no one size fits all, right? So in the team, you look at, you know, again, dig in for the long haul, right? You should expect that people will have to work from home for a longer period of time than you'd ever anticipated. So, for example, what we've done is I've said to all my associates here, Bangalore, Dallas, invest in whatever monitors, whatever best chairs, desks, lamps. Assume that every call with the clients will be on video. So create the environment within the house to be able to work from home, right? To the extent possible. And you have to, as a startup founder, management, you have to invest in employees, provide them all the tools they need that are right now become very basic requirements to be able to work from home. That's the basic, right? So understanding what the team will require and depending on the function, invest in that, right? Invest in the technologies, whether it's Zoom or others that, you know, allow for seamless communication. I have spent a lot of time testing out Zoom versus Google Meet versus we've had associates dialing from different directions, making sure that, you know, we understand how the steps, and that's very basic. Any other technologies that help you sort of become more, you know, more connected and work together as teams. Slack or whatever it is that, you know, as engineering teams you need to have in place if you haven't really all had these things. Obviously, talk to other founders on what they are doing in terms of keeping the teams together. As far as customers are concerned, again, you know, you look at who are your customers, you know, what are their requirements, how much of the work with customers is requires physical contact and travel, right? Make arrangements, obviously have someone available to make the logistical decisions as travel is allowed and have someone ready to go. What are the requirements again for travel, regulations, and, you know, requirements for safety, security, health, all of those, right? You have to start investing and talk to the HR people to make sure that, you know, whatever is required to travel to customers with, and again, identify people and teams that are required versus that are not required to travel, and sort of start communicating the expectations as things develop. With customers also, right? I mean, as a startup, you have to invest in technologies that you can now deliver, assuming you're working from home, your team's remote and digitally working. You have to invest in technologies that allow you to work, you know, remotely and deliver those same product services. So a lot of startups are not doing that. They just assume that because they're engineers, they can figure it out. But there are other technologies being developed, especially to be able to work with enterprise. So look at those technologies. Similarly with investors, you know, have a better sense of communication. Assume you'll be investing, pitching all the time on a remote basis. Just figure out what others are doing, what are the best case scenario solutions, and start deploying those.
Great practical advice. Nandini?
I have one point to make. In some ways, I think it's a democratization of investment opportunities and access for startups, because you don't have to be on Sand Hill Road. You don't have to be buddies with certain investors. I feel like this is an opportunity for anyone, anywhere, to be able to pitch with equal access to people. Now, of course, contact, networking, everything else everyone said matters. And the other thing to keep in mind is, who are your customers, right? In healthcare, which is my area, payers, there's payers, providers, pharma, and patients, consumers. And if you think about targeting providers, which is where the bulk of the investments have gone, they've been decimated in the last quarter. They have no revenue opportunity, nothing right now. And the forward looking is pretty unknown, right? So pick your target areas where you know where the money's going, right? So that's another opportunity. So I just wanted to make the couple points that it could be huge, even though it's a disruption and access is difficult. In some ways, I think maybe new technologies will emerge from New York or India or somewhere else, and not always from the Valley.
Great point. Arunmozhi, I mean, we're all working from home. Give us some ideas how startups and others can leverage, you know, technology.
Absolutely. See, I'm in business development, right? I've been in business development for 20 years. I have been traveling nonstop. Last 4 months, I have not traveled anywhere. What I miss is the personal intimacy that you have with your customers. But the flip side is, what I'm observing in the last 4 months is that I have a lot more time to think. There is a time that we waste in travel that we are not wasting, number one. Number two, customers are giving more time to you nowadays. You ask for a meeting and you are able to get a meeting in less than a week or 2 weeks. it's very easy. Previously, it used to be a long planning because even the customers are having a lot of time in their hand. And like the democratization, extremely important because now you can truly differentiate, not just depend on your relationship alone to differentiate, right, about your products and services. Second, and as an advice is always switch on your video when you are on a call with your customer. I found that you switch on the video, the customer switches on a video. So that's one tip that is something that I am realizing. Second thing, to keep yourself sane, have a routine and for yourself, be when you're working from home, completely like you get ready like the way you are going to get into an office and dress up, and be always sharp, right? That's something that I'm following. I don't know how that is relevant to you all, but it's maybe elementary. But so those are something on the one side. And on the other side, see, I always talk about this in social distancing. How am I going to do customer intimacy while doing social distancing? That is the challenge that we need to look at it and use some of the tools, data tools that we have that you can to create the customer intimacy. So as soon as you are getting into a call, you can get everything you need to know about that customer so that you can actually do a lot more while you are talking that you cannot do if you are in person. That's my 2 cents on using technology to invert customer intimacy.
Great. Arun, good points on keeping a schedule like you were at the office. The one thing I have to confess is I do all my meetings still in my lungi. So that's still something I've not given up on. Which
I heard about that. It's, Anand Mahindra, my previous employer, yes. He wears lungi while on call. So
me too. I'm guilty.
Okay, you are in good company there.
I won't stand up for this call. So anyway, moving on, there's some questions from the audience. So one of the questions has come from an entrepreneur, and he says, on the topic of investment, what do you think, what do you look for in startups? Let's all pretend we're investors. I've done about 100 angel deals in my lifetime so far. So I've probably talked to a couple of thousand entrepreneurs. So maybe I'll start this off with an answer, which is what I look for in an entrepreneur is passion, conviction, and above all, the ability to listen and take action. So if I meet an investor, I give some feedback, I look for him or her to listen and then come back later and actually show they've taken action. So what do you guys look for? Anil, Priya, Nandini, any of you, jump in. Anil, don't be shy.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. I was just unmuting myself. So I think the question was, what do you look for in an investment, not the founders, but that would be the answer, right? You look for the team and the founder, and especially in this world, I think the word that's been thrown around is very relevant: resilience, right? I mean, how resilient is the team? How close they are to each other? Because a lot of the world is changing as we speak, and we will be continue to change, evolve. So founders who are able to evolve and resilient, and others, and seeing how others treat them, how their team sort of respects and bonds together. I mean, there's technology, obviously, and the market opportunity, all the great stuff that you can put on a PowerPoint, but the intangible is really now more valuable than ever before. And I think if I am investing, I have a sort of a unique advantage because I get to see the insides of founders. They're talking about each other, to each other, about third parties, teams talking about the founders very openly with me, right? Because I'm sort of usually the counselor, that they have to, confess to in many cases. So it's and I use that as a guide to where I would invest, and so when I invest in my clients, I have a very sort of advantage because I know where they're heading. So I think team has always been, historically, investors would say it's actually more important now, the quality of the leadership of the founders and how they can get the team moving the same direction.
Right.
I would just do a +1. Can you guys hear me well? I know
you need to speak up a little bit, Priya.
Great. Yeah, I would just say +1 on what Anil said in terms of people. That's a given. And MR, you kind of checked off on every single kind of personal stuff. I just want to go on the business side, right? If you are a founder at this moment or thinking about starting a company, obviously you need to put if I'm an investor, I want to get my ROI, right, in the investment that I'm putting in, and I need to be responsible to my LPs to be able to give that return back. Then focus on the sectors that are hot at this moment, right? Like, is it edtech? Is it healthcare? I think Nandini talked about in future work. And I would say e-logistics has been kind of an uptick. So think about the sector that are looking for disruption. We will share with you all, like if anyone is interested, we can share with you. SVB has done analysis on this. We have a slide that's called Adversity Drives Innovation. And this is a time significant number of unicorns were born. If you have to go back in time, see again through the GFC and the .com. So again, there's tons of opportunity for folks to disrupt. Focus on the sectors that needs that disruption.
Great.
Yeah, I would agree with everything everyone has said. Obviously, focus on right now. Digital health is a very hot topic, but even within that, I think I agree that given we don't know if the recovery is going to be a V-shaped recovery, U, W, whatever shapes that people are coming up with, you have to have an ability to pivot and adapt to the ever-changing landscape of what post-COVID looks like. And so I think that's something that's key, because under the umbrella of digital health, there are so many things. It's such a vast ecosystem, but clinical trials, mental health is a big one, as this has shown us, that it's, a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of startups. There's also like personalized, customized care. Will nursing homes become a thing of the past? Is personal care at home the new thing? And the other statement I made at the beginning, which is look for who are you marketing to is important, because how money is shifting and who has it right now versus what will be, next year versus 5 years from now will be different. And I agree with Priya. A lot of companies were born after the 2008 recession, and there's hope that this will create new opportunities and innovation, particularly in healthcare, but also, if you look at Lululemon's recent acquisition of Zoom, health and fitness, like all of those sort of things are also key areas to focus on.
Emma, I'm going to jump in because I believe no panel is useful unless there's some controversy and argument. So let me lead that. I would not disagree with what Priya and Nandini said, but I would say, if you are, I would not necessarily follow that advice to the T, just to be sure, right? Because if you're a travel, if you are a travel entrepreneur, you have a travel company, please don't shut it down and go into digital health. That would not make sense, right? To be sure. You just have to say, okay, it'll take you longer to figure this out. Travel will come around. And many VCs that we've been talking to, they've said, we also take a 5 to 7 year investment horizon. So we're not necessarily investing in a digital company today, healthcare company today that we expect will exit in 12 months. So think about that, right? Don't just jump in. And again, to Priya's point, all these unicorns that were born in the earlier sort of distressed situations were not born to service the market at that time. They were born with entrepreneurs who saw the opportunity that would emerge from the next few years going through that, right? So Nutanix is a good example. They saw that there would be a move to the cloud, right, from where we were. So there's digitization now. So you look at where if you're a travel entrepreneur, look at how you can digitize your business, right? More than anything else. Not that you have to start providing healthcare. So I would just throw my 2 cents in. Not disagreeing, but I think you have to take that with the right sort of perspective.
That's good. You gave a virtual slap to Priya and Nandini. That's okay.
So I would just add to all the great points is that I used to run these fast-pitch sessions for my previous organization as part of the Foundry initiatives. What I found, the winning ideas used to be one that could not just give a temporary solution to the current problem, but also has a long-term evolution possibility that can become a long and large sustainable business. I think that is a long-term vision. Is without a short-term great product, without a long-term vision, doesn't get selected by during these hospital sessions. So that's I wanted to add that.
It's a good one. On that question, we got another one from the audience, an entrepreneur, who says in the old days, angel investors would go to social events and pitch sessions, and VCs would get a flow of deals. How is it going on today for all of you in terms of just how do you get noticed? How do you get into the deal flow as an entrepreneur? Priya?
I would say, it's Swami, thanks for asking a question. I would address it in 2 parts. Just on the fundraising, if I can address them, are just what we're hearing from investors, period, because people say they're open for business. The reality, let's face it, at this moment, right? Majority of the investors are, I would say, 70 to 80% focusing on their current portfolio companies, because they either want to double down on their investments, bring their investments, if they're planning to double invest on their company future, put more rounds in the 6 months, 12 months down, they're actually putting money in now so they can give that runway. So if you are a brand new startup looking for, so then you're in that smaller pool, just that is the situation you're facing. And given that you cannot meet face-to-face, it is challenging. That's just where the network comes into play. It's even more critical that you have a group of sponsors, mentors, your community that is going to help you, support you, be there for you. If Anil is there to be your therapist and I'm there, that's like, those are the network that you need to kind of nurture, navigate. Go to us, come to like, see who can help you. You know, I think that's where, and a lot of us are doing tons of webinars. And as much as these webinars seems like you're one in hundreds or thousands, they do create a community. There's so many conversations that happens post that. So feel free to reach out to all of us and whoever your networks are to see and attend some of those to make those kind of connections. It is going to be hard, longer, but it will happen.
Priya, I love your networking social events because you send us a free bottle of wine as well. So I'll come back any day.
I know how to get you,
should we announce a free bottle of wine for all the attendees today? So I want to jump in, MR, on the investment part. I would say, I mean, and I just like to say, speak straight, right? I mean, the bitter pill, if you will. If you're having trouble raising investment, connecting with investors in this environment, there's nothing wrong with the environment. There's something wrong with you. I mean, there's as much money as used to be in the past. Nothing's changed. In fact, I would argue there's more investment opportunities now. Arun rightly said, and Priya mentioned, this fact that we are slowing down, we are actually giving each other more time because we are saving all this time from travel and the mad rush. So you should be able to do what you were doing in the world in January, February, instead of physically. I mean, how is it different, right? You would go and present with other 30 founders with a 1-minute pitch session to investors. Nothing's changed. You're just changing it digitally, right? In order to get to that stage, you had to hustle. You had to, as Priya said, find your mentors who would connect you to those opportunities. You have to do the same. You have to have a business plan. The business plan has to make sense. You have to have some customers, a good team that people can, that has credibility. Nothing has changed, and if you have, if you're looking for a COVID situation as excuse, then there's no good luck to you. But otherwise, companies are getting funded, will continue to be funded, and the good companies. Again, the short of it is, I would summarize and be quiet after this, is investors are still around. Money is still around. Investors, job is to invest. Your job is to find them, allow them and help them make their job easier so that they can invest in you. Nothing's changed in that environment, in that equation.
I have a follow-on for Arun. The thing is that Reliance Jio has raised 15 billion, paid off 20 billion in loans, all this stuff. I'm sure you have a lot, and you've bought some startups. And more startups probably want to either partner with Reliance Jio or be bought by Reliance, right? So is there a process that you guys follow when you get these inquiries?
See, I'm not that close to that. My responsibility is different. That's a different strategy. The different team addresses that. But I can, definitely connect if there is a great idea. But typically, what I do is Reliance Jio has done several innovative things in India to build this network and run it at a lowest cost. So my job is to take it out. But I can freely connect to the right team. But typically, I had done that, part of my previous jobs as well as in this job on an ongoing basis. I get ideas and I talk to them, mentor them. If there is something right, I connect them to the right people to take it forward. But yes, we are, there is a lot of, always look for the innovation is out there. Not everything can be done by enterprises.
And MR, I would just jump in that. I've actually, for first-hand experience, RIL has invested in a number of our clients, acquired a couple of our businesses. And I think, it's very clear sort of, and it's very active. It's similar to a US VC fund. And the next generation of, the family and others around are being groomed to be the VCs and sort of, strategic advisors to these startups. So I would say, Reliance of the old, which was, government run or very close to government relationship body, and the Reliance of the today, at least on the venture side, very different. So it's a great opportunity for entrepreneurs to look at.
Great.
MR, I was just going to say one thing. As the founders are thinking through how they want to kind of sustain and go through the scenario and just stay alive. A couple of things, they think about alternative sources of capital as well. So as you're think about folks you've not reached out, tapped on the door with for cash, right? It may not be a traditional angel investors. It could be a family office that they've not considered. Go reach out. I think that's where the hustle comes in. And that's one angle. The other angle is there are several folks in India that does venture debt. So consider all of those options, whether it's Innovation Capital, Ulterior Capital, Trifecta. And, you know, if you're at that stage where maybe we might be able to help in US, there are opportunities there. So I think those are some angles that you could consider to build your cash up, to just wither through this. I think that's one of the things I wanted to add.
I just want to, sorry, I don't want to log out the whole line.
I have a point.
Go ahead.
So private equity has more money now than ever before. I would not discount that. They do have investment arms that are outside of debt financing. And the other thing is follow people on Twitter. Not doing a plug for my ex-company, but First Round, On Deck. There are so many of these that you can follow. Just as much as it's hard for startups to look for seed and other money, it's just as hard for the investors to find them as well, right? Because all of that is a big void now. I have found a lot of people have open DMs. You can directly reach out to them. And then once you have an in, it's much easier. So I would encourage people to find other ways, including angel investors, right? For some of us who look for investment opportunities, that's also dried up now. So having people reach out, I think, wherever, even if you have to scrape together, you know, 25K checks or whatever it is, it's still, there is money to be had right now. Sorry, Anil, go ahead.
No problem. So follow-up question to that we got from the audience was crowdfunding versus angel funding. Any thoughts from you guys on that type of scenario?
I can go again. I don't want to hog the time, but I would say that completely two different structures. Crowdfunding is usually a much larger audience, smaller pieces. We've all sort of been part of in some form or the other, buying a product or a device or a homemaker thing, you know, that we can use. Crowdfunding is regulated differently, and you know, it has to be for a limited platform that itself is registered with the SEC. So there's some technicalities. Not everyone can just go start a crowdfunding platform, and it's smaller numbers and mostly consumers. The advantage of crowdfunding is you actually end up reaching not just investors who are putting money, but also your consumers who are, if they're investing in your product, are very likely to buy the product. So it creates a market for your product even before having to do a lot of work. Whereas angel funding, obviously, as we know, very different. It's more personal and limited, and limited to accredited investors, individuals, or through organizations. So, and it's limited number of people, larger checks, very different structures.
Mr. Ranga, our question actually from people are asking, Nalla session romba nalla poittu irukku, lot of brainy informations. Can we get their email ID or contact information to reach out and kekranga? Is it open to share?
Right.
That'd be awesome, because ellarukume you guys are just feeding the sevikku unavillada world abingra madri. You are giving like lot of good knowledges.
Yeah. No, that's very good. What I will do, at least for the two organizations I'm involved with, the best is to subscribe to our newsletter. So you can go to sandhill.com, you can get the newsletter. You can go to indiaspora.org, you can get the newsletter. Those are good ways. But typically the way I deal with my angel deals, like I said, I talk to at least 200 entrepreneurs a year, is someone comes through a trusted network. Mm-hmm. What I'd say to entrepreneurs is go look into LinkedIn, try to find a connection to me, and have that person talk to me, send me an email or a message. I don't like getting unsolicited emails from entrepreneurs. I just don't like it. I don't know them. I prefer that someone in my network actually who's trusted to them and to me come through and let me know. So any of you guys, Anil, do you want to give your email address or your home address?
Yeah, I don't mind giving. Again, and to be sure, right? I mean, if you're sharing your information, especially for investment, be careful, because when you send it to me, it's not protected. I can send to 10 other people. So please make sure you've talked to someone and had a proper understanding of what the recipient is going to do with your information. I would say that's very important in this day and age.
Yeah. One suggestion, I will probably, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm happy to have people follow me on Twitter, and I could do DMs, and it's less, intrusive, but accessible though, because you can send me private DMs and I'm happy to chat.
Yeah. So the one suggestion is for audience, they can send their questions to info@atausa.org. We'll be able to collect these and then share it with the panelists.
Yeah. No, I think just to reiterate, don't send your information unless you have connected one-on-one with whoever you want to reach out to. Don't just blast out your PowerPoints or whatever it is, please.
Yeah.
So ATA is a trusted fact. The message is also coming in, and you guys can reach out to put Lena, and reach out to them, all our people.
I know we're running short on time, so I want to close this panel out. I want to be respectful because typically Indian organizations are accused of using Indian Standard Time in a different way. And we want to make sure we close our panel at 1:30 Pacific time, right? So one last round of questions for the 4 panelists is one piece of advice you would give existing entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs. What can they be doing in these crazy times with the anticipation there's going to be one more election coming along the way between now and whenever 2021 happens, right? So let's start with Arun. What's it you're going to tell people?
I would say the crisis, we are in the place of crisis, as I think it was JFK wrongly said, crisis means the opportunity and danger. I think that's not exactly correct in Chinese, but actually that is relevant, right? It is opportunity and exploit it. Find ways to exploit that opportunity during this crisis.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, I would say if I have to give one advice to whoever's listening who is an investor or founder, I would say lead with empathy. Because as I think a lot of the panelists touch, it's going to be critical, not just for your clients, employees, your family, yourself. There's a lot going on, a lot of stress that's happening from outside in and inside out. So it's critical for everybody to be caring for each other more than ever. So lead with empathy and it will hopefully end in the right direction.
I would say resilience, tenacity, hang in there because these are difficult times and you just have to persevere and, the clouds will part. Hopefully we have a vaccine soon and, more to come, which will change the lens of everything. So that's what I would say. I mean, the fact that you're an entrepreneur already says you're part of the less than 1% of people. So you already have it in you. So I would say hang tight. And hopefully this is where disruption is going to come from, particularly in healthcare. Sorry, Anil, it's an area I care about, deeply care about, but also everywhere else.
Right. Anil?
Yeah, no, I would say, I think everyone's sort of taken my positions already, I agree with. The only thing, more practically speaking, I would say, nothing's changed. Again, don't get misled by all the news and all the political and all of that. Nothing's changed in terms of how you build business, how you build your technology, how you hire and build and motivate your teams. Those are still critical part of being successful as an entrepreneur. So that's what you need to focus on. At the same time, you have to obviously be flexible and ready to change, adopt to the realities that we are dealing with. The fact that you can't travel, as Arun said, no, you can't be in front of your customers, that, warm feeling. But unless you were planning that, you are a Hollywood-looking, good-looking model you were relying on those skills to sell, nothing's really taken away from you. It's really up to you to adapt to the style of doing business versus the essence of, the basics of business, which hasn't changed.
Right. I want to close this panel by just adding my final thoughts. Again, it's been a really engaging session with 4 really amazing people. 3 of them are in diaspora members. I forgot to mention that. Nandini, Anil, and Priya. So this is a message to Arunmozhi. Join us.
Join us.
Sign up here. Sign up here.
Right here.
But it's been a great session, I think, to the entrepreneurs around the world. Like I said, I've met over 2,000 in the last 20 years. And like Nandini mentioned, you guys are different because you've taken that risk and you have that belief and conviction and don't give up. And personally, I myself failed in my first startup, failed in my second startup, and then lucked out on the 3rd startup. So don't give up, try again and be resilient. And these are great times to start a company. We hope we'll see many of you come back in a year or 2 and tell us that you heard this session and you benefited from it all. So once again, thank you so much. And Nandri, Lena, for having us. And God bless.
Thank you, Amar. All the panelists. I mean, it's been a fantastic session. தமிழ்ல சொல்லணும்னா கஷ்டப்பட்டு செய்வதை விட இஷ்டப்பட்டு செய். அதாவது விரும்பி செய்யணும். You have to like it, what you want to do, right? ரெண்டாவது நேசித்து செயல்படுவதை விட சுவாசித்து செயல்படும். அதாவது நம்ம இன்ஹெரிட் பண்ணி உள்ள இருந்து எடுத்து நம்ம வந்து எதையுமே ஒரு ஹார்ட்ல இருந்து பண்ணணும். எந்த ஸ்டார்ட் அப் பண்றதா இருந்தாலும் எதுவா இருந்தாலும். I think your advice and everything, I think today's discussion has been fantastic and thank you so much. Again, கால்டுவெல்லோட கைடன்ஸ்ல வெள்ளத்தனைய மலர் நீட்டம் மாந்தட்டம் உள்ளத்தனையது உயர்வு அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு திருக்குறளோட இந்த நிகழ்ச்சியை வந்து முடிவு செஞ்சுப்போம். Caldwell and the rest of the team, TEFCON team, thank you so much.
அனைவருக்கும் நன்றிங்க. உங்களுடைய time is precious and thanks for such a nice collaboration, information, motivation. So ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றி. தொடரட்டும், அடுத்த ஆண்டு சந்திப்போம். நன்றி.
Thank you.
நன்றி.